Today we're going to be doing Unit 8 Quiz 2 review. So we're going to go over everything you need to be ready for that Unit 8 quiz. So first of all, for number 1, all you're going to be doing is breaking number 1, or 48, down. So we're just simply trying to simplify that radical. Well, I know that 48 breaks down to 6 and 8. 6 I can break down to 2 and 3. Now remember, we're trying to get this down into all primes. 8 I can break down to 4 and 2. And 4 I can break down to 2 and 2. So underneath the radical, I'm going to write all my pairs. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4 2's, and 1, 3. So I have a pair of 2's here, and I have a pair of 2's here. So on the outside of the radical, I'm going to have 2 pairs of 2's, 1 for this pair and 1 for this pair. And then left underneath the radical is 3 because it doesn't have a pair with it. 2 times 2 is 4, and then I have square root of 3. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at 98. So you want to break 98 down. So I'm not really sure what goes into 98, but I see that it's even. So I take 98 and I divide it by 2. So I end up getting 49. So I know that 2 and 49 go into 98. Well, 49 can then be broken down to 7 and 7. So let's go ahead and let's write that underneath our radical. So we can take out a pair of 7s. So when I write them on the outside, I'm only writing 1 7 to represent that pair that I found. And then left underneath the radical is 2. So then what I have here is 7 square root of 2. Now, let's take a look at number 3. So these fraction ones, what we want to do is break down each radical separately. So I'm going to break down 175 and I'm going to break down 112. So 175, I see that it ends in 7, 5. And anything that ends in 7, 5 usually can be divided by 25. So I'm going to divide it by 25. And when I do that, I get 7. So I know that 25 times 7 is 175. Well, 25 I can split down to 5 and 5. So for this radical, I'm going to have 5 times 5 times 7. So I can take out a pair of 5's, and left underneath the radical is 7. So let's go ahead and break down 112. Well, I don't know what goes into it, so I'm just going to start by dividing it by 2. Well, when I divide it by 2, I end up getting 56. Well, into 56, I know is 7 and 8. Again, trying to get all primes. I've got them there. 8, I break down to 4 and 2, and 4, I break down to 2 and 2. So here are the ends of all my radicals. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4 2's, and 1 7. So I'm taking out 1 pair of 2's and 2 pair of 2's. So 2 times 2 on the outside, and then 7. So what I end up getting is 4 square root of 7. So what I want to do next is rewrite this as its fraction. So for the top, I ended up getting 5 square root of 7, and on the bottom, I ended up getting 4 square root of 7. So what you'll notice is that the square roots of 7's end up canceling out. So then you get 5 over 4. So that's your final answer for number 4. So let's go ahead and let's break down each of these radicals in number 4. So I need to break down 243, and I need to break down 108. Well, I'm not sure what divides 253, or 43, sorry. So what I do is I start by dividing it by 3. And when I do that, I get 81. Well, 81 I can break down to 9 and 9. And 9, each of these, I can break down to 3 and 3. So now I'm going to go ahead and write what I have underneath my radical. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 3's. So that means I have 1, 2 pairs of 3's. So then on the outside I have 1, and then I have another 3, and then left underneath the radical I have 3. Well, 3 times 3 is 9, and then I'm going to get the square root of 3. So let's go ahead and break down 108. So when we break down 108, I start by dividing it by 4. And when I do that, I end up getting 27. So I can take out a pair of 2's here. 27 I can break down to 9 and 3, and then 9 I can break down to 3 and 3. So underneath my radical, I have 2 2's, and then I have 3 3's. So I have 1 pair of 2's I can take out, and 1 pair of 3's. So I'm going to go ahead and write those on the outside, and then underneath the radical, I'm going to have that square root of 3. Well, 2 times 3 is 6, and then we have square root of 3. So now we're going to rewrite that back as a fraction as it was in the beginning. And when we do that, we see that we can cross off the square roots of 3's. So that's going to give us 9 over 6. Now I need to reduce this fraction. Both 9 and 6 are divisible by 3. So then the reduced fraction I get is 1/2. So on questions like number 3 and number 4, please make sure you are checking that your fraction is fully reduced before we move on to the next problem. Let's go ahead and let's take a look at number 5. So the first thing I want to do is break down 24. So 24 I'm going to break down to 4 and 6. 4 breaks down to 2 and 2, and 6 breaks down to 2 and 3. So I'm going to go ahead and write out my radical. So I have 2 times 2 times 2 times 3, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 x's. So now I need to find my pairs. So I have a pair of 2's, and then I have 1, 2, 3, 4 pairs of x's. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by writing out what I have. So I have a pair of 2's. Since I have 1, 2, 3, 4 pairs of x's, I'm going to write that as x to the 4th power. Now I need to figure out what's still left underneath my radical. Well, I have 2 times 3, and I have x. 2 times 3 is 6, and then I have x. So I have 2x to the 4th square root of 6x. So that's my final answer for number 5. Let's go ahead and let's take a look at number 6. Well, whenever I see something ending in 2 zeros, I know it's divisible by 100. So I'm going to do 3 and 100. 100 breaks down to 10 and 10. 10 breaks down to 5 and 2, and 5 and 2. So now I'm going to go ahead and write everything for underneath my radical. Well, I have 1, 2 2's, 1, 2 5's, and 1 3. Then I'm going to write out 5 x's and 2 y's. So now I need to find my pairs. So I have 1 pair of 2, 1 pair of 5's, 2 pairs of x's, and 1 pair of y. So anything with a pair I can write outside of the radical. So this pair of 2's is going to come out, and I'm just going to write 2. I'm going to take the pair of 5's out, and I'm just going to write 5. And then 2 pairs of x's means x squared, and then I have a y. So now I need to figure out what's still left underneath the radical. Well, I have that 3, and I also have another x. So the last thing I need to do is multiply that 2 times 5. Well, 2 times 5 is 10, and then I get x squared y, and left underneath the radical is 3x. So that's your final answer for number 6. Now let's take a look at number 7. When you're doing problems like number 7, you want to think of these as like terms. So I can only add things that have the same radical. So for example, there's no number out in front of there, so that's going to be a 1. So 1 square root of 5 can be combined with negative 4 square root of 5. So 1 minus 4 is negative 3 square root of 5. 3 square root of 7 minus 5 square root of 7 is going to be negative 2 square root of 7. So this is your final answer. You can't combine these two terms anymore because they don't have the same radical. It's kind of like trying to add x and y. It doesn't work. So let's take a look at number 8. The only two we can combine are those two. So 3 square root of 3 plus 4 square root of 3 is going to give me 7 square root of 3, and then I'm going to subtract the square root of 2. So that's my final answer for number 8. Now, let's take a look at number 9. So in order for number 9 to work, it needs to be simplified. Okay, so first things first, the square root of 14 cannot be simplified. So we actually don't have anything more to simplify, but we do need to check first. So 14 only goes to 2 and 7. Those are primes. So we can actually go ahead and combine our like terms. So 5 square root of 14 minus 2 square root of 14, that's going to give me 3 square root of 14. And then plus 6 square root of 5. So that's your final answer for number 9. Now, before we give up on number 10 and call it good, we need to break down this 48. So 48 can be broken down to 6 and 8. 6 can be broken down to 2 and 3. 8 can be broken down to 4 and 2. And 4 can be broken down to 2 and 2. Okay, so then I have 2's. Let's just simplify 48 out first. Let's make it easier. So right now, I'm just going to focus on this guy right here. So I have 3 square root. Now, underneath this radical, I have 4 2's that are at the end and 1 3. So I need to figure out what pairs I have. I can take out a pair of 2's here, and I can take a pair of 2's here. So when I do that, I need to multiply it by the 3 that's already on the outside. So 3 times 2 times 2, well 3 times 2 is 6, okay? Times 2 is going to give me Goodness gracious me. 3 times 2 is 6 times 2 is 12. Goodness, hello brain fart. So this is what's going to take place of that term. So then we're going to do 2 square root of 3 plus 12 square root of 3. So now you'll notice once we simplified it, they both have a square root of 3. So we can add 12 plus 2, and that's going to give us 14 square root of 3. So that's our final answer for number 10. Now, let's take a look at number 11. When you're multiplying radicals, you want to think you're going to multiply outside to outside and inside to inside. So 4 times the square root of 3 is going to be a negative 12. 5 times 6 underneath the radical, 5 times 6 is 30. The last thing we need to do before we call it done is we need to split up 30 and make sure that it can't be simplified down anymore. And when I do that, I find out that it can't. There are no pairs that can be taken out. So negative 12 square root of 30 is our final answer. Now, let's take a look at number 12. So negative 2 times 6 is a negative 12. And then underneath the radicals, 5 times 2, which is going to give me 10, and then x squared. So breaking down 10, I get 2 and 5. So I have negative 12 on the outside, and then on the inside, 2 times 5 times x times x. So this time, I do have a pair of x's that I can take out. So I'm going to take those out and bring them to the outside. So I get negative 12x, and then left underneath the radical is 2 times 5, which is 10. So that right there is your final answer for number 12. Now, let's take a look at number 13. So when you do number 13, it's just using that distribution property. So you're going to take it in, and you're only going to multiply 2 by anything that's already underneath a radical symbol. So here I can multiply 2 and 5, and that's going to give me the square root of 10. Here I'm not going to multiply the 2 by the 5 because the 5 is on the outside of that radical. So then I can do the 2 times the 18, and when I do that, I'm going to get 36. So the next thing I need to do is figure out what I can split up. So that one I can't split up anymore, but let's take a look at 36. I have 6 and 6, 2 and 3, 2 and 3. So my square root of 10 is going to stay the same. Then I'm going to have 5 plus the square root of 2 times 2 times 3 times 3. So what I notice is everything underneath the radical turns out to be in a pair. Now when that happens, it means that second term, the radical is going to disappear. So I'm going to have 5, and then 2 times 3 is 6. So we're going to end up having to multiply 5 times 6. So I get square root of 10, and 5 times 6 is 30. So this right here is your final answer, square root of 10 plus 30. Now, let's take a look at number 14. When you do number 14, what you want to do is use the box method. Okay, so when you do that, you have square root of 2, square root of 5. Here's square root of 2, negative square root of 5. And just for a fun piece of trivia, these are called complements. Okay, that's something you're going to work with when you're in Algebra 2 is this complements property. So now we're going to multiply square root of 2 times square root of 2. They're both underneath the radical, so I can multiply them together. That's going to give me the square root of 4. Square root of 2 times square root of 5, that's going to give me the square root of 10. Negative square root of 5 times 5, well now I know I need to have a negative out front, or sorry, times 2. 5 times 2 is going to give me a negative 10, and here again I'm going to have a negative square root of 5 times 5, which is going to give me 25. So then when I write out all my terms, like so. So the first thing I notice is that these cancel out immediately. So then I'm left with the square root of 4 minus the square root of 25. Well, 4 I can break down to 2 and 2, and 25 I can break down to 5 and 5. So here, this one's going to become 2, and this one's going to become 5. And 2 minus 5 is negative 3. So to talking about that complement, the fun thing about it, when you multiply by complements, you end up getting rid of the radical. So that's what happened here. We ended up with just a number, which is 3. Now let's take a look at number 15. The value of Royce's company computer equipment is decreasing according to this function. In the equation, X is the number of years that have passed since the equipment is purchased, and Y is the number of dollars. What is the value of the equipment after 5 years? So what we're going to do is we're going to take this equation that they gave us, and we're going to plug it into the calculator. Now, this X value is going to represent the number of years, and they want us to find after 5 years. So then I get 3,500 times 8.5 raised to the fifth power. So I suggest you plug that into your calculator so that you make sure you're doing it right. So when I did it, I got $1,552.97. So that's how much the computer is going to be worth after 5 years. Not much of its original value is left, is it? Last but not least, let's take a look at number 16. So number 16 says to suppose the waste generated by non-recycled paper and cardboard products is approximated by the function y is equal to 500 times 2 to the 0.3x power. Okay, how much waste is created by 10 pounds of non-recycled paper and cardboard products? So that's going to be our x. That's what we're going to plug in up here. So we're going to have 500 times 2 to the 0.3 times 10. Now, since both of these are in the exponent, I want to take the time to actually multiply out the exponents. So then I get 500 times 2, 0.3 times 10 is going to be 3. So then I can go ahead and punch this in my calculator. Again, I suggest you try and do it with me. So 500 times 2 to the third power is going to give me 4,000 pounds of waste that was created by simply not recycling 10 pounds of non-recycled paper. Just think about that and the impact that it has on the environment. Okay, so that concludes your review video for today. Let me know if you have any questions. Thanks for listening.